Welcome to PMsquare's series on what's new in Planning Analytics Workspace. My name is Dan Swan and I'm a senior consultant with PMsquare. This video will cover the new enhancements to books and reporting that have been released so far this year in 2024. The first enhancement is the new advanced selector widget. This widget is used to synchronize dimension members within a book or sheet. The examples shown here represent how the advanced selector can be used as a multiple selection list, as we have for the organization and for the months dimension, and as a range selector, as we have here for the years dimension. Let's see how the advanced selector works and how you can build one. We start at the opening tab of our book, where we have 3 advanced selectors the users can utilize to customize their reports. As a user, we can set which organizations and which months we see in our reports, and we can choose a range of years to further filter our reports. These selectors are synced to the entire book, which means the selections made here in the opening tab will change every synchronized visualization in the book. The advanced selector applies a one-way synchronization process. This means the selector will affect the synchronized visualizations, but subsequent changes made within the visualizations will not affect these selectors. Let's make some choices in the selectors to see how this works. So right now we have Florida chosen as our organization. We have January through March as our years chosen, and then in our range selector we have 2021 through 2024. And let's look at our P&L, and we have Florida as our organization, January through March as our months, and if we click the drop down for years, we see our year range. Same with our sales revenue. If we click on months, we see our range. And click on years, we also see the same range. Click on budget versus actual, and we can see our year range within the columns, and then our drop down in our month dimension is correct. So let's go back to the Customize tab, and let's choose a different organization. Let's choose Michigan and click Apply. Let's select January through June, so I'm going to click January, and then I'm going to shift click on June to select all 6 months. Click Apply, and then on our range selector, let's choose 2022 as our beginning year and click Apply. Now, unfortunately, when you click Apply, there's no immediate signal that anything has happened. However, if we go to the P&L tab or any of our tabs, we can see the results of those changes. So our organization is now Michigan. We see our chosen month range, and then in the drop down for years, we see our chosen range. Same for sales revenue. And then for a budget and actual tab, our year range changed in the columns. And then if we select January, we see the years I chose for the months dimension. Now, I said that these advanced selectors apply a one-way synchronization. So if I make a change here, and we'll change our month set from just January through June to January through December, click Apply. All right, now we have January through December in our report, and this change also affected all my tabs since these tabs are all synchronized. So now I see January through December here. Then if I go to budget versus actual, I see January through December here. When I go back to my Customize screen, you can see that nothing has changed with these advanced selectors. And so that illustrates what we mean by one way. We make changes here, they affect our tabs, but any changes made within the tabs do not affect these selectors. Okay, let's explore how the advanced selector can be created and configured. We'll stay within this book and go to the advanced selector tab where we have the income statement cube. I'm going to go into edit mode, and we can create an advanced selector for any dimension in the context or the rows or columns. I'm going to click on the menu for the budget, go to add widget as, then click advanced selector. I'm going to resize this selector, and then with it highlighted, click on the properties tab. So under the general tab, we have our normal appearance and layout features. If I go to synchronize, I can synchronize this selector by sheet or with the book. We'll leave it on sheet for now. If I go to the custom tab, we have the unique selections for an advanced selector. One of them being the layout, and by default the selector will open up with 2 selectors. You can have 3 or 4 depending on your requirements. You can also change the orientation of the selector from horizontal to vertical. We'll leave it at horizontal. Within apply selections, we have 3 features: in batch, show as range selector, and multiple selection list. In batch, when it's disabled, means that any changes that are made within the selector are applied immediately to any of the synchronized visualizations. Within batch enabled, we get an apply button, and now our changes are batched. So I can make changes to the selector and they're not applied until I hit the apply button. The show as range selector, when it's enabled, doesn't change anything visually, but the selector on the left becomes our beginning value of our range, and the selector on the right becomes the ending value of our range. With the multiple selection list enabled, the selector changes to a drop-down or just a list of the values that are available in the dimension. I'm going to click here, open the set editor, and I'm going to change this to all members. Click apply. And now in my range selector, I can select any value or multiple values within this list of members of this dimension. And when we have the multiple selection list enabled, the in batch is grayed out, but it's enabled. As you can see, the apply button exists here. Show as range selector is disabled because it's incompatible with the multiple selection list. Also, when the multiple selection list is enabled, the layout area is disabled since the orientation and the number of selectors no longer matters. Let's change this back and disable the multiple selection list. And let's look at selector titles. So I can change the title. Right now it's just defaulting to the dimension name, which is version. So if I want to change the title of selector 1, we'll change this to beginning value. And then for selector 2, we're going to change that to ending value. And now our selector titles have changed, and that's assuming that this is a range selector. Actually, wouldn't change if I enabled the range selector. Let's look at selector styles, and by default all of these are enabled, and if we disable view as selector list, it changes each of the selectors to a drop-down. And then if we disable show header, our titles go away. And the same applies to show icon, show overflow menu. You can disable those so that those no longer show, including the search bar and the ability to expand and collapse. In the set editor, you can disable access to the set editor if you want to. I'm going to disable everything, and then I want to reorient this cube so we can show the changes that we make to the version dimension in our columns. I'll put the focus back on our advanced selector, then go back to the custom tab. So now in-batch is disabled, everything's disabled, and if I click on my selector and select budget and change this, scroll down to actual, and you can see that the changes were made immediately. Now if I enable in batch and then make changes again, let's change this to variance and then change selector 2 to variance percent. Nothing changes until I click apply. Now if I change this to a range selector, then go back and make a change here. So note we've got budget version 2, variance percent. So I'm going to change this to budget. And then I'm going to change this to variance percent. Then click apply. And you can see that the range that appeared in the drop down and that is selected is now part of our columns. If we enable the selection list, now our selector has changed quite a bit. So now I can select either a single item or I can select multiple items. I can control click apply, and now we see budget and variance. Or I can shift click as we did earlier, and now we see everything that I selected. Of course, I can move this around so that it's in a better position. So that's how the advanced selector works, and that's how you want to set it up. In Release 94, the Fields panel has been added to manage settings in explorations within books. The actions that you can perform in the overview area of an exploration are now supported in the Fields panel, except Move to Bench. Previously, the Fields panel was available only for charts and graphs. In the P&L tab, with the income statement highlighted, you can click on Fields. The Fields panel opens, and what is currently in the context area shows up in the filter section, and then the rows and columns are filled out. I can drag and move around a dimension to another area, like from filters to the column, and I can nest my local currency with my month's dimensions. I can click on this menu button and I can click Edit this set, which opens the set editor. I'm going to click Cancel to close. I can click Enter Member, and this is not a search box. This is expecting the exact member name. So if I type in, say M-I-C-H-I, hit Enter, no member is found. If I type in the rest of the name, hit Enter, it changes to Michigan. If I click Hierarchy, I can remove, replace, or add related. If I remove, it moves it to the bench. Replace is available and add related are available if there are additional hierarchies. If there are no hierarchies, then all I will see is remove. I'm going to click on remove, and you can see that it's gone from the context area, but it's been moved to the bench. So I'll move that back. If I click here again, go back to hierarchy and go to replace, I can see the hierarchies that are available to replace what I currently have. Go back here to hierarchy again. If I go add related, I can see those hierarchies again, and those will add or be nested to the hierarchy that's already there. So I'm going to click cancel here. If I go up to rows or columns and click on the menu, I can edit the set here. If I click on enter name set, this is not a search box either. You would need to enter the exact name of the set you're looking for. If I typed in, say, Y, I'll get the total year set. I'll just expand that. Also, we have a hierarchy option here where we can remove, replace, or add related, and the same applies. We'll click on account hierarchy. So there's no additional hierarchy, so the only option we have is to remove it or move it to the bench. So I also have set consolidations here, and I have customized sets available in the accounts in the rows. The rows and the columns. If I click on customize sets, I can choose the sets that are available to the user for this particular dimension. And the selected sets appear here. I'm going to click cancel here. Now if I go into edit mode, re-highlight this exploration, and I click on these menus again, I'll have an additional option available to add a widget, either a selector list, a selector tile, or an advanced selector. Same is true here in the filters area. I can add a widget, selector list, selector tile, or advanced selector. So the addition of the fields panel is a nice enhancement that gives us the ability to change our exploration, either how it's configured by dimension, or what members are available, or what sets are used and available in the exploration. Also added in Release 94 is a new format manager that consolidates Cube Viewer formatting options. The new format manager contains the formatting options that were under format values in the toolbar, which included the Cube View menus that controlled formats, cell alignment, member alignment, and conditional formatting. Also, the Format Manager contains the formatting options that were in Visualization Properties, which included formatting for data cells and for row and column header sections. The new Format Manager must be enabled by a Planning Analytics Workspace administrator. If an administrator does not explicitly enable the new Format Manager feature, all Cube Viewer formatting options remain in their existing locations until the feature becomes permanently enabled in a future release. To access the Format Manager, highlight your view, then go up to the toolbar and select the Format Manager icon. This used to be the Format Values icon, but it's been repurposed in this release. Click on it to open, and with the Format Manager open, you can see there's two main areas: view formatting and member formatting. Note that member formats take priority over the view formats, and you can create conditional formatting rules for individual members. So within the view formatting area, we have four components: the data area, column header, row header, and spacers. I can edit the data area by clicking on the name, or I can go over here to the edit icon and click here to edit. Note too that the format choices I make are reflected here in these boxes, including the fill color. So I'm going to click on the edit icon to open the data area, and we can see we can alter our fill color. We can select a numeric format, and whenever that format choice is changed, the sample value changes to reflect that. I'm going to change that back just to currency. And then under string format, we've got word wrap choices. Then under font, we can choose a font family or font style. And the font style drop down depends on the font choice made, or font family choice. And for Plex Sans, we only have one choice. But if we go to, say, Roboto, we have several font style choices. Or you can click directly here to get bold, italic, and underline. And you can see our sample is changed to reflect that change also. Then we can change font size and font color. And then click apply when complete. Next, I'm going to click on the column header name to edit it. And here we can change our fill color. We can also select inherit, and inherit just means that we're going to inherit the values that appear in the data format. I'm going to click off that, and I'm going to select green for my header fill color, and you can see my sample box changed to reflect that. We also have word wrap options, and our font choices are exactly the same as we had for the data area, including font style and font size and font color. And then I'll click apply, and notice our sample box here is updated also. Row header, I have the exact same options as I did with the column header. I can inherit, or I can choose fill color. String format options are the same, as are my font family, font style, font size, and font color options. Then lastly, spacers. I can choose a fill color for my spacers, and I can also show line dividers or not. By default, show line dividers are enabled. So again, click apply when complete, and click done when you're finished with the view area. So now you can see that my column header formatting has been updated. And if I don't like that, I can go back into Format Manager, go back into column headers, edit, and then just click restore to default and apply. Then again, done, and my formatting is back to the default. Let's go back into the Format Manager, go into the member area, and then let's choose the organization and the hierarchy that we want to apply formatting to. Then we want to click Add Format, where our dimension and hierarchy choice has been made, and now we can select the member that we want to apply formatting to. Let's choose Massachusetts, and I can click Format Data Cells to move forward, or I can click Next. I'm going to click Next, and we can select the numeric format for Massachusetts, select thousands, and then our sample value has been updated. Under string format, we have the word wrap options, and then under font we have options for the horizontal or vertical alignment. Then let's go to Format Header Cells, where we can change the horizontal or vertical alignment on our header value. Next, conditional data rules. Here we can add a rule for Massachusetts. Under type, we've got member, value, or text. I'm going to leave it at value. Got several logical operators. I'm going to leave it at greater than. I'm going to enter 10,000. If I hit a decimal point, I need to also add the decimal places. Then click Edit to change my conditional rule format, so I can change the border color or leave it at inherit, which will inherit it from the data view. I can change the fill color. The font style I can change, and the font color, which I will change to green. And then I can add an indicator. And so you can see what the formatting will look like if the conditional rule is true. Click Done, and then click Apply, and then Done one more time. So let's select Massachusetts, and we can see that the other formatting we did applies here, but our conditional formatting does not. But if we move the organization dimension either to the rows or columns, then we will see our conditional formatting. If I swap rows and columns, we'll see the conditional formatting in the columns, but we won't see it in the context. Now we can select or access the member formatting by right-clicking on the header for the member we want to change. So if I select May, I can change the member format here. I'm going to go back to Massachusetts, select member format, and I'm right into the member formatting for Massachusetts. There's no choices for organization and hierarchy because I'm going directly from that header value. So I can change my data cell formatting, string formatting, and alignment formatting for header cells. I can change my conditional rule. I can delete the conditional rule if I would like. Click Apply, and my conditional rule is gone, but my other formatting is still there. Now in edit mode, an administrator can go into the Properties menu on the Custom tab and remove the formatting icon altogether from the toolbar for this view. So the icon is gone. You can restore it. So that's another option that the administrator has if you don't want users using the Format Manager. In Release 94, IBM added the capability of creating a multivariate forecast in addition to a univariate forecast in Planning Analytics Workspace. The univariate forecast predicts future values using a single variable based on historical data using the Holt-Winters model. The multivariate forecast is a type of forecast that considers multiple time-dependent variables. This approach not only looks at historical data, but also accounts for the interdependencies and relationships among the specified variables to create a forecast. The specified variables perform an important role in determining forecast results, so it's important to choose variables that are highly correlated with your historical data. Multivariate forecasting uses one of two models, depending on the number of historical data points and whether future values are included in the forecast. The vector autoregressive model is used if there are less than 64 data points in the historical data. The autoregressive integrated moving average model is used if future values are included in the forecast. If there are more than 63 historical data points and no further values are included in the forecast, then the system chooses the optimal model. The option to include or exclude future values are available when you configure the forecast. Both multivariate models, VAR and AirMax, are not seasonal. So if your data is highly seasonal, use the univariate forecasting method. The basic requirements for a multivariate forecast are that the time dimension must be a contiguous, evenly spaced set of time periods organized in order of increasing time. The time dimensions must be placed in the columns of a view. Multiple time dimensions can be nested. At least 16 historical data points are required and seasonality does not apply. Forecasted time periods must exist and also be contiguous. The system will not create new time periods. The forecast will fail if any of the forecasted cells contain a calculation. If you use a version dimension, it must appear in the context area of the exploration view, else it is not available as a target on the Advanced tab when you set up your forecast. Variables can be selected from different cubes, but the variables must exist in a cube that uses the same time dimensions as the view used to initiate the forecast. The cube for the variables must also reside within the same database as the view used to initiate the forecast. For more forecasting requirements and instructions, check out my blog on AI forecasting in Workspace. The link is in the description below. Let's go through a brief overview on how to set up a multivariate forecast, and we will provide a more in-depth treatment in a later post. Right now we're looking at a view of the revenue cube in the SmartCo instance. And note that I have my two time dimensions nested on the columns, which is a requirement for a forecast. I recommend setting up your view like this before you begin choosing your variables or setting your forecast period start and end dates. I'm going to click in here to highlight the view, go to the toolbar, click on Forecast, then Multivariate. In the Multivariate panel, you can see that there is no scope selected. I'll do that by clicking on the Apple row, and now I have one row selected as my scope. In the Setup tab, we have our period start and end dates, and if I click on this drop-down menu, I can see that both of my nested time dimensions are represented here, so I can make a precise forecast period start date, and then the same is true for my period end date. I can choose to save statistical details as comments. Those comments will be saved in the first forecast cell for each time series. I can click here to add a variable. In this existing variable, if I click the drop down, I can edit the variable or remove it. Let's click Edit. In edit mode, I can change the cube my variable comes from. I can change the members for each dimension that represent my variable. I can also include future values here. And you'll notice that there's no time dimension represented here, and that's because the time dimensions already have a role in the forecast. I'm going to click Cancel here because I'm not going to make any changes. All right, let's go to the Advanced tab, where we can select the scope of our historical data used. We can choose to use the entire TM1 cube, or we can choose to use the historical data in the exploration. I have enough historical data in my exploration to use this option. And adjust outliers. With this enabled, the system will correct for all detected outliers before performing the forecast. Ignore historical time periods. We can choose to ignore time periods after a certain date, or we can choose to ignore individual time periods. We can choose to spread our forecast values either proportional or relative proportional. And where do we save our predicted values? In my case, I'm choosing to save it in the version dimension, the version hierarchy, and in my forecast member. If we click on Preview, we can see how well the forecast performs. I've got a nice graph. My predictive accuracy is high. If we look at statistical details, that looks good also. All right, That's our brief overview of a multivariate forecast. We will do a full review of this subject in a later post. In Release 95, the new synchronization settings will allow you to customize how each hierarchy in the Cube Viewer or visualization displays when a synchronization event is received by that widget. The advanced synchronization settings apply only to the widget that receives the synchronization event. To get to the advanced synchronization settings, I'm going to work within this reporting tab where I have two advanced selectors, one for organization, one for month, and then I have an income statement view. So I want to go into edit mode, then I want to highlight the income statement view, go to properties, and click on the synchronize tab. Then under hierarchies, and I have synchronized hierarchies enabled, I'm going to click on advanced synchronization. And with that panel open, my rows, columns, and filters are represented. In filters, I've got everything that's in the context of this view, and I have my dimension name and hierarchy name for each dimension in this view. Under each of my dimensions, I have a set of options under Action on Set Change, which control the behavior of this dimension when there is a synchronization event. The options are Set, Set and Aggregate, Aggregate and Set, and Aggregate. I'm going to put it back on Set, and we're going to walk through what each one of these options do when there is a synchronization event. So we're on Set. I'm going to go to my organization selector and I'm going to select these three states and click Apply. So Set returns the set I chose in my selector, Massachusetts, Maryland, and Florida. So I'm going to highlight the view, go back to the Synchronize tab and Advanced Synchronization, and then we'll change this setting to Set and Aggregate. So let's suppose your CEO wants to see a certain set of states. Let's say he wants to see Maryland, Michigan, California. Click Apply. He wants to see those three states in an aggregation. And Set and Aggregate gives you the three set state choices and an aggregation. I'll highlight the view again, go back to Synchronize, Hierarchies, and Advanced Synchronization. We'll change this to Aggregate and Set. And we'll add one more state, click Apply. And now we have our aggregation first and then our set of states. Highlight our view again, go back to Synchronize tab, and let's change this one more time to Aggregate. And we'll add yet another state here, click Apply. And now we just get an aggregation. I can right click here and rename this. Okay, let's look at the other synchronization feature that's been added. Go to Hierarchies, Advanced Synchronization. We've looked at all the options under Action on Set Change. Let's look at Action on Member Change. Right now there are several options showing here. However, none of these options appear to be working at this point except for Member. And Member is the default value. And as we demonstrated what happens on Action on Set Change, the Action on Member Change was always at member, so we have already seen the behavior for action on member change for this member option. So we are on release 98, and this particular feature is not fully functional yet, so hopefully it will be in a future release. So right now, action on member change, member is the only option that works. All right, so that is it for advanced synchronization. In release 96, set consolidations can now include named and unnamed set members. Set consolidations used to be called subset calculation options. You can create a set consolidation from multiple places in the application. From the Dimension Tile Overflow menu, you can right-click on a column or row header. You can right-click on the right-click thumbs menu, or you can go to the Fields panel and click on the panel tile menus and click Set Consolidations. In the Set Consolidations dialog box, you can select the set, named or unnamed, and the calculation type. By default, the calculation name changes based on your selections. If you enter a custom name, the name stays constant and will not react to the selection changes. So using the drop down here, going to Set Editor, going to select a random set of months, click Keep, then Apply. Now my unnamed set is part of the calculation. I'm going to change this calculation to sum. I'm going to change the calculation name to selected months, then Apply. And then look at our view, and now selected months set consolidation has been added to my view. To remove this consolidation, I just right click and select Remove. So that's how you use an unnamed set in a set consolidation. In Release 96, you can now configure the behavior of an action button when it's clicked a second time while already executing a turbo integrator process. In previous versions of Workspace, clicking an action button a second time canceled the process if it was already running a process. To access the additional click options for an action button, go into Edit Mode, click on the Action button, then click on Properties. And in the Run Process tab, you can see the new additional click options. Cancel Process is set by default, and if the action button is clicked again while the process is running, it will cancel the process. Do Nothing will take no action if the action button is clicked again while the process is running. Run Processes in Parallel will start a new process if the action button that is running a process is clicked again. The previously executed process will continue to run until completion. Use this option if users are likely to run a series of overlapping processes using the same action button. And that makes sense, like in our case where we have set parameters that can be changed to refocus the process. You can run a maximum of 5 processes in parallel. If you attempt to run the 6th process, a message about this limit is displayed. 2 new buttons have been added to the toolbar that allow you to show and hide the Universal Reports and the Dynamic Reports format area. You can customize the named ranges when the format area is shown. Click anywhere within the web sheet to highlight it, and the toolbar will appear. And the 2 new icons, Show Sheet Format Area and Hide Sheet Format Area, will appear. We'll click on Show Sheet Format Area, and the top row formatting area is shown, and then the far left formatting column is shown. Then just click on hide sheet format area to close it. In Release 97, selected visualizations can now plot members from the same dimension, making it easy to view and compare them quickly. In the example shown here, 3 members of the month dimension display in the column chart as the column length and in the chart's color. The following visualizations can plot multiple members from the same dimension: column, line, line and column, bar, stack bar, stat column, Marimekko, point, and area. We'll start in an exploration of the income statement view. I'll click inside the view to highlight it, then go up to the toolbar and click Exploration. We'll go to the column chart, convert it to a column chart, and open up the Fields panel. And in the Fields panel, the color field shows the length with the 3 members that display in different colors: Florida, California, and Washington. The 3-member item in the color field acts like any other hierarchy. I can drag this down to repeat column, and I convert this to 3 charts for each organization member. I can click here to add an additional member to the organization, and my chart reflects a change. I can click here on the menu button for any organization member and click Remove. We'll drag this back to color, and I can easily convert this column chart to a line chart, where in the Fields panel I have the same functionality. In the color field, I can drag this down to repeat column and again have a chart for each organization member. Also, I can add an additional member here and remove that member. Okay, that's how you plot members from the same dimension in a chart. Thanks for watching this video on what's new in Books and Reporting in Workspace. Be sure to subscribe to PMsquare's YouTube channel, where you can find more videos featuring what's new in Planning Analytics Workspace. Also, ring the bell so that you'll be notified when the next video is released.